Good evening and welcome to the Gospel Truth. I'm Alan Jackson, bringing to you spiritual songs and hymns and the power of the spoken word of God. First of all, giving thanks to God Almighty for blessing me with this another outpouring of His tender love and mercy, that He allowed me once again to be on this the time side of life, and to have this another blessed privilege to come to you in His name by way of this television medium, and to bring to you another message from His holy and divine word. And as I always do, I'd like to continue to express my appreciation to the production staff for their continued service to the gospel truth. And it's my prayer that God will continue to bless each one of them with those things that He knows that they are standing in need of. And I'm praying on your behalf as participants of the gospel truth. And it's my prayer that God will continue to bless you and your family with all of those things that He knows that you're standing in need of as well. Well, we have arrived at February 2025, so this is Black American History Month, and so tonight I'm going to present to you Dr. L. Sharpton on the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Washington, D.C.
No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! What do we want? Justice! What do we want? Justice! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? When do we want it? When do we want it? Several weeks ago, when it was announced that this inauguration of Donald Trump was going to take place on Martin Luther King Day and be in Washington, because we want people to see the tale of two cities in one district. When Donald Trump was president before, he went in the Oval Office and he hung a portrait of his favorite president. His favorite president was Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was the president that nominated to the Supreme Court Judge Roger Taney. Judge Roger Taney was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court that rendered the Dred Scott decision that blacks had no rights that anyone was bound to respect. That is Donald Trump's hero. Yes, sir. On this side of town, yes, sir, Martin Luther King Jr. gave his life, shed blood, and died to open up America for everybody, blacks, whites, gays, straights. It didn't matter. There's two different occasions in town. We're gonna take an oath today that we're with Dr. King. I was on my way here. They said to me that President Trump called the mayor of New York in late night and invited him to come down to the inauguration. I said, well, he should have called, because I got him in town anyway, Corey Weiss. Why should he have called Corey Weiss from you around the country don't know? 1999, 1990, there was a white female viciously beat, despicably raped in Central Park. New York police went and corralled 5 young black and brown men, yes, sir, coerced them into signing confessions, put them in jail. One of their mothers called us. We had just started National Action Network. We went and stood up for them. They called me everything but a child of God. Said that I was condoning raping and beating and demagoguery. But I stood up for them. And some 13 years later, a young man in his cell confessed his cellmate. He said, you ever heard of the Central Park 5? Cellmate said, yeah, I remember that. He said, you know, they didn't do that, I did. The cellmate, trying to get favor to get himself out of jail early, told the warden. And they went and did the DNA check and found out the guy in the cell matched the dress of the bloodied woman that had been beaten. They had to therefore let it turn around and exonerate these 5 young men. Corey Weiss did 13 and a half years in jail for a crime he didn't commit. Others, 4 of them, time in jail. Donald Trump took out an ad in the newspapers and said, bring back the death penalty and execute these young men. And even when the city of New York said that we have to compensate them for the time they served that they were coerced into, he said, don't give them a dime. This summer, National Action Network took some of them on tour. And some of the political, they talk about they gave some money for it. No, we took money to bring them on tour to tell the country the Central Park 5 story. We endorsed no candidate. We wanted the folk to know what candidates were. Yes, sir. So I thought the least I could do for Mr. Trump is bring one of the Central Park 5 to town. I'm sure he want to invite him. I want him to know Corey Weiss is still alive. There is no death penalty. Raise your hand, Corey Weiss. How are you, Mr. Trump, on Martin Luther King Day? Gonna pardon folks that beat up police officers. How are you, Mr. Trump, on the birthday or the federal holiday of a Prince of Peace and nonviolence, going to excuse those that caused death of Capitol Police in the nation's capital? How dare you, Mr. Trump? How dare you on King Day talk about making heroes out of haters? How dare you on a federal holiday for the man that brought the Poor People's Campaign to the United States, that you bring some tech billionaires to church this morning that need to be repenting for the disinformation and the sinful assimilation. If everybody else is scared of you, I wasn't scared of you in 1990, and I'm not scared of you now. We fought too hard. We shed too much blood. We spent too many nights in jail to think that Trump can turn us around. I wanted to be in Washington to let you know so you didn't have to hear rumor. We right here. We are not going back. You got some walking around. First of all, they lied and said they're going to get all the black men to vote for them. Look at the facts. That did not happen. The fact of the matter is that under the 4 years that you were in before, George Floyd happened. Ahmaud Arbery was killed in Brunswick, Georgia. Breonna Taylor happened. You never stood up one time for justice for any of them. Never uttered a word of justice. And we got by. We built and had one of the largest gatherings in this district. We brought 200,000 people to the nation's capital around George Floyd. I call the march in a pandemic. You were right in the White House. We marched for Ahmaud Arbery. We convicted the police in George Floyd. We convicted the police in Ahmaud Arbery. We showed even under you we would fight and win anyhow, and we gonna fight these next 4 years no matter what you say. Everything that Dr. King stood for is at risk with this president and this Congress. What is Dr. King known for? Standing up for economic rights, standing up for equal rights, standing up for civil rights. And all of that, this president, against women's right to choose, against equal rights for gays, against the whole question of diversity, equity, and inclusion. On the record. Against voting rights, wants to bring it back to states' rights. So it's not even about me against Trump, it's about him against Dr. King's principles. He said he wants to open up the files on Dr. King and Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy's death. Well, that is good, but you should also open up the books of Dr. King and read them. If you read Dr. King's books, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? You would know why we needed diversity and equity and inclusion. When blacks were brought here in 1619, we were brought here as a result of slave trade. Slave trade meant that there was an economic arrangement. They justified it by dehumanizing who they traded. They traded some for some blacks by paying off others blacks in Africa. Am I right? So that's why it ain't just a black and white thing, because some black folks sold us out in the first place. And some blacks are still selling us out. Watch this. Lamel McMorris, one of our board members, from 1619 on, we were here slaves. They didn't even write the Declaration of Independence and declare their independence from King George until 1776. Which meant we had already been slaves 150 years before the country ever became independent. You worked us before there was a country. Not only did you work us, you broke us down. Took our families. Sold mama to Alabama. Sold daddy to Mississippi. Sold our brothers and sisters to North Carolina, never to reconcile. And now you got the nerve to get on Fox talking about what happened to the black family. That's what happened to the black family. We worked with no wages. It was against the law for us to read and write. If whites, because there were some whites that were always abolitionists, if they were caught teaching us how to read and write, they'd be prosecuted. And for all those years, we were in that circumstance. And people started rising up. William Lloyd Garrison, a white from New England, and Frederick Douglass, a runaway slave. We got into the 1700s, headed into the 1800s. And there was the division in the country between the North and the South. And Abraham Lincoln got elected president. And they began to separate the country. And they declared the South was going to secede and form the Confederacy. Now watch this. Lincoln said we must fight to save the Union. Garrison and Frederick Douglass said we need to end slavery. He said, no, this is not about slavery, it's about the Union. And they declared war and fought. Jefferson Davis became the president of the Confederacy, Abe Lincoln the president of the Union, and they fought for years, 5 years. And when they started losing at Shiloh and Petersburg and start getting north, coming down the Potomac River where we near now, that's when Lincoln decided reluctantly, maybe y'all are right, I'll free the slaves in the South and let them join the Union Army. Y'all need to stop saying Lincoln freed the slaves freed Lincoln. Lincoln promised in Emancipation Proclamation January 1st, 1863, that at midnight, slaves would be free. That's why, Sean, we have watch night service different than anybody else. Because watch night was for us, whether at midnight, we'd be able to walk off the plantation. And when midnight struck, we walked off, but remember now, we walked off with no money. We'd worked for 246 years and never got paid. We had no education. It was against the law to read and write. We had no family structure, because you broke up our family, named our children after yourself. We were standing there with nothing. The only thing we had was our ability to convene and congregate. That was the birth of the black church. Why are we in church today? Because all we had was the faith in God and the black church, and say, on this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail. And therefore lynching became the order of the day. They lynched 5,000 blacks between the end of Reconstruction and the 1950s. They lynched more blacks after slavery than during slavery, because they didn't kill us in slavery because they needed slaves. NAACP was founded, Urban League founded early 20th century to fight slavery. And it was not until the mid-1900s, the mid-20th century, that we started getting some victories back. Adam Clayton Powell had a Harlem bus boycott. Thurgood Marshall won 54 Supreme Court decision. And then in 55, a thin, diminutive black woman named Rosa Parks sat down in the front of the bus in Montgomery, Alabama, and refused to give up her seat. We saw when she sat down in front of the bus and she was arrested because the law was that she had no right to sit in the front. A black preacher in that town named Martin Luther King got with the other ministers, and Alphonso David, they said the law is against us. Society is against us. But one thing they cannot control is they can't make us spend our dollars on them buses. And they made up their mind that it was better to walk in dignity than ride in shame. It may be inconvenient, but I'd rather walk with my pride than take your low-down ride. Martin Luther King did not go into history singing hymns. He did not go into history making eloquent speeches. He could do both. He went into history because he taught the people in Montgomery and later people around the world, if we discipline our dollars, we would make folk understand they have to respect us and regard us. Donald Trump just said in his inaugural address that he is going to end DEI this week. He's going to put out his executive orders. You have all these corporations that are saying they're going to back up off DEI. And why do we have DEI? We had DEI because you denied us diversity. You denied us equity. You denied us inclusion. DEI was a remedy to the racial institutional bigotry practiced in academia and in these corporations. Now you want to put us back in the back of the bus. We gonna do the Dr. King Rosa Parks on you We're going to call you out one by one, and we're going to shut you down. I've talked with Mark Morial of the Urban League. I've talked to others. We're putting together a council. I'm going to release the names this week. Alfonso David, for 90 days, they're going to do a study of what companies have pulled out of DEI and what companies have a small margin of profit. And we in 90 days are going to announce the 2 companies that we're going after. And we're going to ask everybody in this country, black, white, brown, gay, straight, woman, trans, don't buy where you are not respected. Donald Trump can't make us buy your stuff. The Senate can't make us buy your stuff. In the name of Dr. King, we're going to do what Dr. King did. Trump tweeted the other week, I'm a con man. No, call me the coin man. I'm going to stop the coins from dropping in the wrong place. Have y'all forgot who Dr. King was? Dr. King was a boycotter. Dr. King shut down the bus company. We sitting up here letting companies talk to us like we ain't got no leverage. Take the bass out of your voice. Talk to me like I'm a grown man. I'm sitting up watching the TV after I worked out this morning. Got Elon Musk and all them sit up in church. Like we crazy. They gonna decide our fate. You didn't decide our fate in slavery. You didn't decide our fate with our grandmama sitting in the front of the bus. You must have forgot who we are. We are the ones that took everything you got and we still here. We're the ones that took bad food and made it soul food. We're the ones that knew science and astrology. You don't know who you messing with. We built the country. You can run any lie you want on us. You done everything you could to us, yet we still here. Ford asked me, well, what do you think about Donald Trump always taking shots at you? First of all, how could I be offended by a man with 34 felonies? So I want you to be ready and attentive in these 90 days as we go down the list. Now, in these 90 days, I'm gonna start it in Harlem in a couple of weeks. Those companies that have come out and said, no, we're gonna stand with DEI. I'm gonna buy some National Action Network. We go pay for some of these, what do y'all call them when you go shopping? Gift cards. I think I'm gonna buy about 50, 100 gift cards and go to Costco's. We're gonna support those companies that stand up and tell the truth. We're gonna change this argument. This ain't gonna be no Oval Office argument, Trump. This is gonna be an argument in the streets. We're gonna take it where it needs to be. We're gonna go and shop with those that stand up for us and break those that don't. And we beat them before. I ain't never been scared of somebody already whipped. What I'm saying to you is that don't let them hijack what Dr. King was about. Yes, sir. And as we close, let me tell you this. That what made Dr. King as effective as he was is he believed in a higher power. One of the reasons Reverend Lamar, his pastor here, Reverend Lamar, is here. One of the reasons I asked Reverend Lamar to let us do this in this church is in this church. In 1895, they had Frederick Douglass's funeral on this church ground. This church. they brought Rosa Parks' body. Bible said, remove not the ancient landmarks. I wanted us to make our oath right in the same rock that sent Frederick Douglass home, that sent Rosa Parks home. This is sacred ground. And every once in a while in history, we are tested. And Trump is nothing but a test. He's a test to our collective communities. I want everyone, if you are resolved, to just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, Al Sharpton, do solemnly commit that I will stand up and rise up in the name of Dr. King, in the name of Frederick Douglass, in the name of Rosa Parks, and I will defend equality for all, diversity, equality, inclusion, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, immigration rights. I commit, I take this oath that I will not become like those I'm fighting. I'm not for violence, but I will peacefully stand against those that want to bring us down. I commit this in the house of God, on this sacred ground. So help me God. Congratulate yourself. Down in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. Oh, it's a big day for the right wing. Yes, sir. They celebrating and they gonna have their little inaugural parties tonight, but we shall overcome. Yeah. They got their billionaires, but we got the God of the universe. Show you God is in charge. They plan the parade, but God controls the weather. We shall overcome.
Turn me around.